Welcome to the Drinking Rethink, a podcast designed to help you take a fresh look at alcohol and the role it plays in your life. Whether you're starting to question your drinking habits or simply curious about making changes, this podcast offers a balanced perspective without the pressure of having to think you need to quit entirely.
In each episode, we dive into real conversations about the role of alcohol in your mind, body, and career. We explore topics like reducing stress without relying on alcohol, navigating social situations with ease, and finding satisfaction in making mindful choices. You'll hear relatable stories, expert insights, and practical tips to help you with your own drinking rethink. If you're a regular drinker, it's important to check in with a medical professional before making any big changes to your drinking patterns.
Hi there, and welcome back to the Drinking Rethink. I'm Kath, here with my co-host and friend Chris, and we're so excited you're joining us today. Whether this is your first episode or you've been with us from the start, we're thrilled you're here. Today, we're diving into something that changed everything for both of us. How to start questioning your relationship with alcohol. It's not always easy, but it's such a powerful and vital first step. If you've ever felt stuck or wondered if alcohol is helping or holding you back, this episode will give you some tools and questions to help you get clarity.
Here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll share some questions that helped us reflect on our own drinking habits. And then we'll look at the costs and benefits of drinking. And finally, we'll talk about aligning your choices with the life that you want. We'll also share some of the lessons we've learnt along the way, because let's face it, this process is as much about discovery as it is about change.
Absolutely, it is, Chris. And I want to start by sharing a little bit about my own journey, because maybe you'll see some of yourself in it. For years, I told myself my drinking was fine because I wasn't drinking every day. But deep down, I knew my binge drinking weekends were taking a toll on my energy, my focus, and my relationships. When I started asking myself questions like, what are the costs of my binge drinking and what will happen if I continue to drink in this way in 5 or maybe 10 years, I realised it wasn't aligning with the person I wanted to be.
Yeah, for me, it was so similar. But in the corporate world, like drinking was so ingrained in the culture that I didn't even think to question it. It was networking, celebrating, unwinding after long days. But over time, I started to notice that it was holding me back at work and then, of course, also at home. I remember thinking, this isn't helping me show up as the leader I want to be, or as the partner I want to be, or even the person that I want to be. That's when I knew I had to start reflecting on the role alcohol was playing in my life and at least start thinking about change.
Yes, I think it's really helpful for us to share some questions that were game changers for us, and maybe you can bring them into your own life. These aren't about judgment, they're about curiosity. It's really about noticing what comes up for you. How does alcohol impact my physical health? For me, I noticed after a big night of binge drinking, my sleep was terrible. My energy was low and it left me feeling drained for days and took me a long time to get back into feeling like I'd had a good night's sleep.
Oh, same here. I used to think that alcohol helped me relax. And of course, for the first few minutes, you maybe are getting that feeling. But the truth was, it was messing with my focus. It was harder to bring my A game at work. If you've noticed changes in your sleep or energy, this is a good one to think about. What is the actual physical changes that are happening when I do drink and after I drink? Another good one to think about, what are the financial costs of drinking? I had no idea, and I didn't want to know how much I was spending on alcohol until I actually had a look. It wasn't just the drinks, it was the dinners, the Uber Eats, the taxis, and everything else that came with it. I'd challenge you to do some of the math. You might be surprised.
Yes, exactly, Chris. When I did the sums, I couldn't believe how much I was spending on alcohol during weekends, events, and holidays. It was often the most expensive category. And what I love about some of the apps now is that you can calculate how much money you are saving from choosing not to drink. And this is a big one, of course. How does drinking affect relationships in our lives? I realised I wasn't always present with my family, and I'd often zone out after a night of drinking. And it would hit me that I would often miss out on moments with my children, particularly when they were young. The other thing I noticed that when I was drinking and I would think that I'd be having a lot of fun with my kids, I'd wake up the next day and I really wouldn't have been fully present, and I wouldn't remember when my kids would start to ask me about things that had happened the night before.
And with this one, I think straight away about work. I used to think that drinking with colleagues was me connecting, but then I realized those connections weren't always genuine or not as genuine as I thought. And that was helpful for me to really reflect on how it was affecting my work relationships. The next thing I would challenge people to think about, because we are all human, is do I feel regret, shame, or guilt after drinking? I have recently heard someone phrase guilt as a feeling that you get when you've done something that doesn't align with your values. That for me on a Sunday morning was the feeling that I can relate to, and I've been there many times. For me, it was a sign something wasn't sitting right. And if you've ever felt that way, you're definitely not alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely relate. And those feelings, I think, are really tough and uncomfortable to sit in. But they're also a message and a sign that you care and that you want something more out of your life. Really, it's your inner wisdom telling you that something in your life needs to shift. One of the other questions to start asking yourself, which is a way of reframing some of these other questions, is what would I gain by reducing or eliminating alcohol from my life? And for me, this was when I started to really kind of expand my mindset a bit. For me, I looked at it and it was I could get more clarity, confidence, deeper relationships, more presence. What about you, Chris? What did you see you could gain?
Well, I do remember it took some time for my brain to heal and rest. Then, once it had had some time, I could notice my focus, my energy, and my ability to show up in work and personal life. Imagine what you could do with those benefits. And if they sold it in a bottle, I'm sure people would be buying it. Okay, so that's the questions that may be helpful for people to reflect on. Let's switch over now, talk about costs and benefits. Let's talk about the costs of drinking and, of course, the financial costs. But it's also about missed opportunities, lost time, and not being the person that you know you could be. It's good to think about what are the costs for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure those of you that are listening can think about what those costs are. But on the other hand, there's also the benefits or the perceived benefits of drinking that are also important to look at. And for me, it was connected to my party girl identity in social settings that had really been established early in my teenagehood. But when I dug deeper into that identity, I realised that those benefits didn't outweigh the costs. And I think this is, a really important point. Often we do have benefits from our drinking. We can see them in our past. And it's really about looking at that balance sheet and knowing that at a point in time in our life that we're making a choice to let something go to gain the benefits of drinking less or an alcohol-free life. One of my favourite topics, aligning drinking with the values, the person that you want to be. Does drinking align with your values? And for me, this was a big one. This was the big question that kept knocking on my head probably for 5 or 10 years. As I started to become more interested in personal development, in understanding, who I was as a person, in wanting to connect more deeply with other humans, what I realised was that alcohol and my drinking and the behaviour that showed up when I was drinking did not align to those values and how I wanted to live. And so I'd wake up in shame, and I'd feel misaligned and continue to say to myself, I really need to look more closely at alcohol because it is the one thing that is standing out, that is clashing with my values.
Well, I can relate to that, Kath. And also for me, it reminds me of thinking and asking myself, does this support the kind of leader or partner or person that I want to be? That clarity and sitting with that question before answering and being honest in the answer made all the difference for me. So let's talk about some takeaways, things that you can recap and jot down with you as you think about some of that we're posing to you. Here's the 3 steps that you could take away from this chat. First one, track your drinking habits and how they make you feel. This can be as simple as a log or writing down in a journal how you were feeling before, how you were feeling after, and what was going on for you at the time. Number 2 is answer some of those reflection questions that we've shared today. If you need to, go back and listen to them again. Be honest with yourself. And number 3, just try one small change, like skipping one drink or choosing one alternative activity. All big things start with one action.
And here's something to reflect on. What's one area of your life where you'd like to see a change? And how could reducing alcohol help you get closer to that goal? So, in summary, with some key takeaways, we explored how to start questioning your relationship with alcohol by asking a few simple questions, reflecting on costs and benefits, and aligning with your values. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on The Drinking Rethink.